And then all of a sudden, they fall down the stairs. You hear boom, 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 boom. And then you hear the door open and close. Didn't open and close, but that's what you heard.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Monsters Lounge. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Tressa. Jenny, you know what's going viral on TikTok right now this week?
Good God, you know I don't.
I know, that's why I'm telling you. Somebody came out and was like, I don't know, some creator gets letters about spooky stories. And they're like, I got a story from someone who went to an elite party and I didn't know what was going on. And blah, blah, blah. They were serving a mermaid for dinner. And then he went into the pantry and there was an aquarium full of mermaids that the host just like keeps to have these crazy dinner parties full of elites, $50,000 tickets. So that's pretty cool. But then there were like all these other people that were like, yeah, I also know someone who did that.
I don't believe you. Well, I believe you, but I don't believe those stories for any one little bit of time. I don't believe it. I don't think that there's a man with an aquarium with tiny little mermaids. I was just talking about this on the Cryptid Women's Society shout out little Instagram live that we did. There's not tiny little mermaids. Don't look like mermaids, people.
No, they didn't say that they did.
Well, that's what I'm imagining.
But also, that's what elites eat. So, what do you expect elites to eat at a $50,000 dinner? It's going to be a mermaid, or Loch Ness monster, or megalodon, or some other seafood.
Bite your tongue.
They're elites. They're elites, Jenny.
Put it out into the universe. I know where you live.
I should hope so. It's in the room right next to yours.
All right. I don't know. I'm rejecting it. Okay. I'm rejecting it right
That's
now.
Fine. It's a viral trend, but okay, if you don't believe it, that's fine. Weirdo.
All right. First of all, stop shouting at me. Second of all, we've got a lot to cover tonight. Well, we don't, but our guest does.
Oh, good, because I don't have much more to talk about.
Oh, no, I was pretty sure that was it. Just rewatching that same TikTok over and over again. Listen, we have a very, very cool guest, and we're very excited about it. In our email exchanges, it's been very fun and very funny. Her name is Stacey Jones, Stacey A Jones. And she started investigating in 1984 while she was a police officer in New York. So I love it when police officers have partaken in the paranormal.
Yes, that's the best.
I know, because you just believe them more. I don't know why.
Because they have authority. I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking.
Honesty. Is that true? I don't know.
I think that maybe
feels like it. I don't know.
Anyway, it's very evidence-based, and I think that's kind of what I like about it. So she founded the Central New York Ghost Hunters, and was lovingly christened the Ghost Cop, which I also enjoy the mental images that come to mind on that. She has investigated over 1,000 haunted locations. She's been featured on 2 haunting episodes and has appeared on various paranormal reality TV shows. She has brought over 30 years of experience and common sense to investigation. She's a lifelong researcher and reader of the paranormal, religion, and history. She is since retired from police force and team investigating. And won't you please help me welcome Stacey?
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Hi. How are you?
I'm great.
All right. First of all, is there any sort of case that would get you back into investigating, do you think?
Oh,
I don't know. Boy, that's a tough one because I get asked quite a bit to still investigate, and when I do, I get a little flip in my stomach that kind of answers it for me and go, yeah, no.
No. Okay.
that's
Yeah.
fair.
And I
Yeah.
wish I could tell you like there was one specific reason, but I just got down, I moved from New York to Florida back in 2013. And my life where I worked 4 jobs just completely stopped on a dime. And I didn't have to go to work and I could stay home. And I kind of got used to that quiet because I never had quiet in New York, but I had quiet here. So I kind of embraced it and then just kind of said, you know what, I don't want to do it anymore. I like the peace right now.
I would imagine so. Yeah, it's like you've kind of done your time with all of the chaos.
Yeah.
And then
It's
some.
a lot of chaos.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Did you start, and this is always my question for anybody, in sort of these positions where they investigate things anyway, did you start off having some sort of experience in the paranormal and then applied your skills to that? Or was there something that happened to you while you were a cop that made you think there's something else going on here?
I I started studying ghosts when I was 6. My mom had an experience. She lost her father when she was 9 years old. And she had gone to school and saw him standing in front of the classroom a couple days after the funeral.
Wow.
And when she told me this at 5, 6 years old, I was so struck by how intelligent she was, valedictorian of her class. She's a very smart woman. And I said, she saw her dead dad. And I was so intrigued by that, I started asking other family members. And I asked my dad, and my dad, who at the time was a conservation officer, he said, oh, yeah. And he had a story. And my grandmother had a story, and my grandfather. So everybody in the family had stories. So I said, well, I'm going to get the answer. So I started reading. And by the time I was 12, I had exhausted the library system of their books. So
Nice.
I started ordering journal articles because back then parapsychology was still studied in colleges. So I started getting journal articles, and I couldn't understand a half of what I was reading, but I was convinced that I'm going to find this answer for everybody in my family, that I'm going to solve that, for them. So it never went away. I kept every book that I read. And one day I was going into work, and very early in the morning. And I always passed this house on the way to work. And it was one of these types of houses, and you know it and I know it, that you always look at it, And it wasn't an abandoned house. It was just a normal house. But I stared at this house every single day. And as I was going into work, and, before cell phones and, before anything, it was about 5:15 in the morning. This house was on fire. And by the time I got to a convenience store and called, this house was gone. It completely burned down. But the reason why it was so incredible to me is because that was my first case, my first ghost case.
Oh, wow.
We kept getting called to this house as police officers. It was a mom and 3 boys who had just divorced. And the first time she called, it was, I think somebody's playing tricks on me. And of course we check it, nothing went on. And over time, we kept getting called more and more. And after about 6 months, we were getting called 2 to 3 times a week. And she was convinced that it was her ex-husband. So the last time we went, my partner said, I was kind of relatively brand new at this. my partner said to her, unless you see somebody, don't ever call again. And that was it. And I felt so bad because as I was walking out, first it was just mom scared, and then one of the boys, that whole family was terrified of what was going on in the house. And I knew that house was haunted just by what they told me from reading,
Yeah.
So I decided on my next day off, I'm going to go stop by the house. And I stopped by the house, and they had moved out in the middle of the night.
Oh.
And I got a hold of the landlord, and I said, where did they go? And he goes, I don't know, but they walked out on their lease, and I'm going to go after her. Oh. And I said, well, no, you're not. I said, because if you do that, I'm going to give you a ticket every time you leave your driveway. Just let it go,
Nice.
So I never did find out where they went, but 6 months later on the way to work, that house burned to the ground. And that was with what she was going through, that was the day I said, I'm going to start helping people with this. And I did it only by referral, because there was such a stigma attached to believing in ghosts back then,
Right.
It was not mainstream. If you said you believed in aliens, ghosts, and especially being a cop, you were gone. That's it. So it was always by referral, and it was always through fellow officers, and it was just kind of passed around. And then then in the late 90s is when it kind of got too far, and it got to a newspaper. And then the reporter called me up and said, is it true? This is what you do. And I said, yes. And, and at that point, I did have a group, and we only had about 6 people. And when he wrote this article about me, it kind of exploded after that, which kind of worked out because I stopped being a cop then.
Oh, well.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't matter then.
My son was very ill at the time, and I was a single mom, and I couldn't do both. So I took a job and took care of my family and started this group, and never in a million years did I think it would lead to anything. I just figured, well, I know a lot about it, so I guess maybe I can help people, and that's how it started.
Yeah. Holy mackerel. What do you feel how do you feel like you crossed over, like being a police officer into like your ghost investigation? Like, was there something different that you did? Was it like a different sort of procedure that you followed?
I actually had the idea that, at one point, Central New York Ghost Hunters had over 100 members.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big team.
It was a big team. And what I wanted was, I wanted a lot of the responsibility off of me, because at this point, I had been doing this for, 10, 12 years at this point.
Yeah.
And I just wanted help because, I just had so much to do. I kind of wanted to set up my investigations almost like precincts. And, with New York State being so big, and me being the first group, I actually had members that came from Pennsylvania. They came from New Jersey. They would drive 5 or 6 hours because there was no other groups around. So what I wanted was to be able to assign them these cases and help these families, because that was the reason why I started the group. Was I wanted to help people in research. That was 100% why I started it. But when the group got big, a lot of my members weren't happy about that. But I said, I want everybody to remember the day when you believed in this and we couldn't talk about it. I want a safe space where we could all get together and talk about it without being ridiculed. So I always had an open door policy. It doesn't mean they stayed. It was just an open door policy,
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do. But unfortunately, when it comes to a group situation, they want all the fun and they want you to do the work.
Ah, that's weird and not fun.
Yeah.
So, I became the entertainment committee. And so that's kind of how I had to push the group that way was, hey, yep, you want to go into investigations, that means you're going to have to do the work too. So it was always a tough thing. I had the group for almost 20 years.
Wow.
And then it was time for me to go, okay, I didn't want it to end because we were helping people. So I had 2 group members, a husband and wife, take over the group, and then they ran it for 5 years. And now they live down here with me, not near me, but they're down in Florida here. So,
because it's warm.
It's the group is still in existence. We still have members that have been there since day one, and they're now board members, which is something I did. Is I made it a group that an LLC. We had board of trustees, and so because I didn't want it to be a dictatorship. I don't think that's a healthy way to run a group.
Yeah,
and I there was all walks of life. I even invited skeptics in the group, and I wanted skeptics in the group because they keep us honest and they keep us thinking outside the paranormal box and bring the outside into it. But I do have to say that whenever anybody contacted me, it was always, and this is the cop in me, if somebody called up and said, I see this ghost and blah, 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 I'm secretly saying to myself, okay, and I did that through, exactly. I did that the entire time I investigated. Entire time. I just never believed them because that's the cop thing in me.
Right.
If somebody comes up to me, well, I didn't do that. Oh, okay. So I always kept that right off the bat is I don't believe you. I'll be nice about it. I'm not going to tell you I don't believe you, but I don't believe you off the bat.
Yeah.
Proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the evidence. And that's what I relied upon.
Does the team still take it on in a way just specifically to help people? Or did they do it more of like, I heard this place is haunted and I want to hear some ghosty stuff?
Well, not everybody in the group investigated private homes or people that needed help. I had many clergy in my group. I had a priest. I had ministers. Basically kind of like from all religions. They didn't go to meetings, but they were kind of like on speed dial,
Nice.
I had 3 Catholic priests that helped me out quite a bit if I really felt it was something I couldn't handle. And I had 1 minister that all he did was exorcisms.
Okay.
Wow.
So, but, once again, it wasn't anything that I did. If it was something I felt I couldn't handle, I would, refer it out to them and then they would take care of it. I even had the Church of Latter-day Saints. I had them helping me out a lot too. So, I got whoever I could to help me, with the problems with families, because I don't, me personally, I just don't think it's something that you should mess around with. When you've got children in a house and you go in ghost hunting, we never did that because that's detrimental. And, watching my episode on a hunting would tell you that, but I had to learn the hard way. But, it was just, it was more about the help, but now the group just does the fun ghost hunts. That's what they do. I don't think they really even collect evidence anymore. I think they just go ghost hunt. And you know what? They've been doing it for 20 some odd years. So let them,
Yeah. Have your fun, guys. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to hear some stories that maybe affected you. And let's start with the fun ones first, right after this break.
For those of you naysayers, I want you to know how much I appreciate how many of you grabbed a hold of my small package after last week's show. It is out and available. You can get both of my books, The Other Side, A Guide to the Paranormal and Ghost Hunting, and my brand new book, Theater of the Mind, Tales from the Darkness. Both books are out. One, of course, kind of a how-to ghost hunt book, and the other story book of strange supernatural occurrences all around the world. You can get your hand on my small package by just ordering it right off of my website. You can go right to paranormal60.com, scroll down on the front page there, or go to the shop and scroll down and you'll see our book bundle. And I was so humbled by the fact of how many men put their hands on my small package at the end of last week's show and bought it. It was great. It made me feel loved and wanted. I'm not going to lie.
We got to get more commercials. I'm just saying.
I have a question to ask. Who hasn't touched Dave's small package? I mean, I know I have.
I mean,
I have not.
Yeah, you've known him the longest. So
yeah.
You
know Dave.
I don't know.
So do you have, like, from all of this experience, do you have any sort of like positive, fun stories?
Oh, right. To me, when I left and moved down here, I did an event at a bed and breakfast in Ocala. And Zappis was there and Andrea Perrin was there and everything else. And on the way home, I started crying because I realized I didn't have the gift afterwards. And that was the gift of being able to go back to my group and share what I experienced, And I just remember crying the whole way home. I don't have them, And
yeah.
So that was kind of the day that I said, you know what, I'm done. Because I always had the group to go to and I didn't have it anymore. And, I tried to join some groups down here. I did join a group. I was in Daytona and her name was Dusty and she died shortly after.
Oh, no.
And she was a great person. What a great person. And I just said, you know what, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
I had a very nice little bow on my package when it was done. So I think that's how it should end,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, when it sounds like the way that you put together the team, the way that it was run, it sounds impeccable, right? Like, that's really cool.
It was hard work. It was, I spent more than 60 hours a week on just group business and a lot of time was just putting out the fires between members.
Oh, that's too
there
much.
You go.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like when I started the group, I had 7 rules. By the time I left, it was 17 pages front to back because it was always somebody going to say, well, it's not in the rules. Well,
absolutely not.
You would wear a bra,
It's restrictive. It can get snapped in an investigation. It's fine.
Like, what are the ghosts going to look at? Like,
and I always have to go back to. I'm from the time where there was no ghost shows. If there was a ghost show on, and John Zappis can attest to this one. If there was a ghost show on, there was like 12 of us that called each other because those were the only ghost hunters out there. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, there's a ghost show on blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And then when Jane Grant got Ghost Hunters, I turned to John and I said, this is going to be a blessing and a curse like you can't believe. And, because, we got all the people we wanted for our groups, but we also got all the people that came to the, So
there's no such thing as drama in the paranormal world.
What are you talking about?
I don't even.
Something that happened?
Facebook, what?
I don't know what you mean.
It got to the point where I was like, I can't believe I have to kick people out of a ghost group. Why? You guys, we're getting together and we're hunting ghosts. Why are we having issues? But it is what it is.
It's not about you guys.
So, but between trying to put out the fires, for putting out the fires with the group, I also had to be on the phone with clients. And my husband, who works nights, he used to leave at 7:30 at night. I was on the phone at 7 at night before he even walked out the door, and I was on that phone until probably 10:30 or 11 o'clock every single night.
Yeah.
And it was just trying to, talk to people and figure out what's going on. And, so.
Yeah. What kind of so I kept thinking about this in terms of like criminal cases and things, right? Because I will be the first person to say, like, I don't have experience ghost hunting. I don't have experience doing that because I like the cryptids. I like being outside. We all know this. Anyway, but is there a point where like a ghost investigation is closed?
Yeah, I would say that. I had one house I investigated for 15 years. And I did it just because of the research part of it. I thought it was interesting to see what would progress from A to Z. And, it was kind of like we would go the same weekend every year. And we would just bombard it's a couple's house. We would bombard their house, ghost hunt the whole weekend, and just see what we would get. And what was interesting is over about 6 years, we actually got the little girl's name, and we were able to verify that yes, she did die in the house, and she gave us her name. And we didn't do that till after we had gotten EVP. Yeah. And I said, okay, now it's time to do some research. And sure enough, this little girl died of it was a accidental overdose by the pharmacist.
Oh, wow.
Out, and the pharmacist had too strong of morphine, and they gave her morphine, and it killed her. So yeah, but yeah, and it took about 6 years to get that, but we just kept going back.
Yeah. Did you find that you had a lot of those cases where you were able to say like, okay, this is what's happening, this is who it is, or were the majority of them just sort of left a little bit unanswered?
When it came to private homes, I tried to give them answers. It's not like I'm going to give them names, because that just doesn't happen. It's just not something that happens. But, like for example, the horrific EVP that I was talking about earlier, that was a hotel downstate in the Catskills. And it's the Shanley Hotel. And we were
the Shanley. Yeah,
we were the first group in there. Nobody else had investigated it, and we went in the weekend, and I'm telling you, it was so crazy and so active that I was like, they're pranking us. This is a prank, because since when does activity like this happen? It was so crazy. The original owners at one point brought chairs out into a room and sat down, and just they were waiting. I said, what are you waiting for? We're waiting for the ghost. I'm like, okay,
yeah, and there it is again, like, all right, enough.
And this hotel had a working brothel in it. Mm-hmm. And it was rumored that Eleanor Roosevelt was one of these people in the brothel. So
was she working there?
Wait, was she just chilling? Do we know?
No, she was a regular visitor, and my understanding was, yeah, but
oh snap!
Yep. I get it now. Okay, I'm on board.
Yep.
So, so this brothel, we were doing this investigating, and it was cold. It was January, and it didn't have heat. So we go up for 15, come down for 15, and we came down at it was a little past 10, and we were getting warm. And they came in, brought their chairs, sat down, and I said, you're waiting for the ghost? Oh yeah. They said they come down every night.
Every night.
Oh crap!
I'm imagining a ghost parade, like
right. So sure enough, we kind of sat around, and then you hear footsteps come down the stairs. You hear the door didn't open, but you hear it. You hear the door close, and you hear the footsteps walk across the floor, and you hear another door open up, and you hear that door, and then the footsteps walked away.
So and literally
there was 19 people there. 19 people.
I love when there's so many sightings and like so many witnesses, right?
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, my weekend's done here. So that was the first night. So
we got 5 more nights.
What's up next?
We had gone to bed probably at like 3, and there was only a few of the rooms that were done at this point. So I had taken one room at the right of the second floor off the stairway, and the minister had come, and she was in the room on the left. So we were across from each other, and it was a double staircase right down to the front door. So the rest of the group are all sleeping on sleeping bags, because I'm not doing that. And
Absolutely not.
They're down by the brothel area, downstairs. And all of a sudden, you heard two people fighting. It was punches, it was groans, and this went on for 10 minutes. And then it was up and down the stairs, and I'm like, what is my group doing? Oh my God. So I'm mad at this point. And I of course, like, I'm just so groggy. So I get myself up, I throw open the door, and as I throw open the door, it sounds like there's two men fighting right outside the door. I mean, you hear punches, you hear all of that. So I get up and I'm mad, and I throw open the door, and Patty, the minister, is on the other side of the hallway, and I'm here, and you hear this fight right in front of us, and there's nothing there. And then all of a sudden, they fall down the stairs. You hear them, boom, 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 boom. And then you hear the door open and close. Didn't open and close, but that's what you heard. So I'm looking at her. She's looking at me. And we're just dumbfounded. So we tipped down the stairs to go where the rest of the group is sleeping. And we got our ear to the door, and we're like, well, they must be sleeping. And we opened up the door, and they were listening in, thinking it was us. And nothing. So that was the first night. Next day,
God.
I'm going to, now I grew up not too far from this hotel. So I grew up on a summer camp in the Catskills.
That's fun.
Kind of like, Dirty Dancing type of thing.
This is amazing. I love all of this.
So I decided I wanted to go visit, and I took a couple of my group members with me, and I left 4 there, and we got back, and that night was just as active as the night before. We were getting crazy stuff, So Sunday morning comes, and we've now got to drive back up to Syracuse, and this is about 6 hours from Syracuse. So we've got a long time. And he says, this is the owner. He says, well, let me show you the house that I bought that was built in 1700. I was like, what? Sure enough, go over. There's this house he completely redid. And he's like, I would love for you to investigate. I was like, yeah, we'll do that sometime, but give me time. So we got in the car, we went home, and we started uploading our evidence, and it took probably about 3 weeks to get everything uploaded after listening and all of that. And the very last EVP that one of my members had got, I put up onto my computer, and this EVP came out, and it sounds like a woman being raped and murdered. And we got it. When I was gone, they were sitting on the steps, and this EVP was done at like 2:00 in the afternoon.
Oh my gosh.
And it's, if you want to listen to it, it's on YouTube, and it's called Horrific EVP. And I've only got about 10 minutes up. I tried for about 6 months. The first thing I did when I heard it, I didn't think it was an EVP. You hear a clock that's not there. You hear this woman say, get off me. And you hear this man say no. And then you start hearing fights, and you hear hits.
The rest, yeah.
Some people even say it sounds like she was drowned. I didn't hear that, and then it ends on a gunshot.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I thought this might have been cable leakage, and so I got a hold of Time Warner Cable, and they referred me to about 6 different companies, and I finally got a hold of the company that serviced the area in the Catskills, and asked them what frequency it came on, because this came in at a very high frequency, not a low one, which EVP is usually very low. So I called the FAA, I called Verizon, I called the phone company, I called radio stations. It took me about 6 months to try to eliminate this as being some kind of leakage, or, this wasn't paranormal. And the frequency that it came in, when I called the FAA, come to find out that the frequency it came in was the frequency that NASA uses.
What?
Yep.
I don't understand that. What?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
Oh, that is
So I
that
don't
is wild.
understand. I mean, it was, people are like, oh, that's just the TV. It wasn't the TV.
Yeah.
It came in at too high of a frequency. So we released the EVP about 6 months afterwards with the hopes that somebody would help us, because we had done all we had done. We hired a professional sound engineer, and he tried, and they're just, even when we tried to clean it up, it would take away a lot from it. So we kind of had to leave it.
Right.
So we put it up on YouTube. It immediately got taken down. Somebody had yanked it. So this is the version that somebody had yanked off the first time. This is the first 10 minutes. And the second 10 minutes I never put up because it sounds like 35, 40 people all talking to each other through EVP.
Does it sound like a party? Does it just sound like a bunch of random?
It sounds like people at a bus station. Like, we got one clear conversations about how, and you could tell they were men. These two men very clearly talking about how they wish they can go to Burger King again.
Listen, flame broiled burgers, delightful.
So, and it would be like, okay, well, that was on a frequency, and I tried to get that, to isolate that frequency. And unfortunately, it was like, well, they also used part of other frequencies to kind of form these sentences. So every time
that's what I love.
It takes away, and then it just kind of ruined it. So we always left it as it was, hoping that somebody out there has something better, because the software to clean that back up in 2007-8 was like $1,500.
Yeah.
So I want to break in at this point and say that earlier before the show, we were talking about it, and you mentioned that you had the whole thing. And so if anybody's listening who thinks that they want to crack at it, or listen to the whole thing, try to decipher it, help you guys out, or help you, I guess, not you guys, but you try to get some answers on it, please just let us know. Reach out, to myself or to Tressa via social media, or email us. Okay, reach out to me on social media, or email us at Monsters Podcast or the Monsters Lounge Podcast. I can't remember the email, you guys. Monsters Lounge Podcast at gmail.com. And, we'll get you connected and get you that recording. So you can take
someone's got to be able to do this by now. It's 2025.
There was 5 or 6 people that did. When it first came out, 5 or 6 people did, and they tried very hard. Very hard. There's articles written about this because, it was on Coast to Coast with George Norrie, and he said this is the most profound ghost evidence caught to date. 20 years later, I disagree with that, because right now I think we are in the golden age of really great evidence. So
it's so much easier. Well, there's just so many people doing it now that there's bound to be so much more evidence.
Yeah. So but it's interesting just because I forgot to mention that a day or two or a week before we got to the Shanley Hotel, they found human remains in the basement.
Okay.
All right.
Makes sense.
And from what we kind of gathered, they kind of I saw the bones, and they were wrapped in old lady bloomers. Like
okay.
the
Yeah.
So I did not think that this had anything to do with the EVP, because the EVP, you could tell it's very modern. And there was rumors in town that there's a prison nearby that a corrections officer had killed one of the working girls up in the attic. And that,
Okay.
So I think honestly, it sounded too modern for pantaloons.
Right.
You hear "get off me,"
Right.
So,
And if we're talking about Burger King, come on.
right, exactly. Yeah.
Valid point.
And I want to hear maybe a couple more stories right after this, everybody.
A vampire in Rhode Island?
A UFO crash in Connecticut?
A flying moose in Maine?
A haunted bridge that calls your name?
New England is weird.
Really weird.
Wicked Strange by Jeff Belanger and Frank Grace is your ticket to the bizarre. Ghosts, monsters, urban legends, and roadside oddities you won't believe until you see them.
So pre-order now on Amazon. It drops September 2nd.
Assuming the Black Dog of West Peak doesn't get you first.
Let's get strange.
Wicked Strange. Pre-order your copy now on Amazon.
That was
See,
a good
new
one.
ad.
New commercial.
Yeah.
I like it. We should
Jeff
have led with that.
Belanger. I knew him since he was like barely out of high school. Yeah.
I love this so much.
It's true. Yep.
Tell us some dirt.
Yeah, seriously.
Well,
He's a
here's
nice human
dirt on
being.
Jeff Belanger. When he first started doing, this was back before, everything. I mean, the World Wide Web was relatively new at this point. And when he put his website up, he kind of came right out and said, "I don't know if I believe in this."
Yeah.
That
And
sounds like him.
John
Yeah.
Zappis and I both looked at him and said, "Then why are you doing it?" And he said, "To get the answers." I personally have to respect that because that's why I did it. And I
Yeah.
think that's why a lot of people do it. You know,
Absolutely.
So,
I-
for sure.
I saw a UFO when I was going through the police academy when I was younger. I grew up in the Hudson Valley where all the UFOs.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I grew up there and saw a UFO when I was younger. And I said, you know what? I was like, okay, I'm going to do the ghost thing. Want to do research that ghost thing. I'm going to find the
Yeah.
answer to that. And I think it's already been answered. I think there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's absolutely real. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's not anything that I did, and it's not really the culmination. It's the amount of video evidence out there that, that show Paranormal Caught on Camera. Oh,
Yeah.
that just absolutely floors me, So that show convinced me, but really, honestly, there's one cryptid I just don't know about.
Wait, which one?
Which one?
Bigfoot.
Oh,
Oh
no.
You know why?
Right.
Why?
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 Because where's the bodies? Where?
Okay.
All right. Well,
Okay.
let's.
I know-
We're
I
not.
know all
Yeah,
the
we're
theories.
not.
I know all the theories, but you know what? I'm like, and I've known people that have seen them, and
Yeah.
and I'm not denying their experience. It's just I want a body. I want a hair that does not come back to a bear.
Well, of course you do. You're a cop
Exactly.
underneath everything.
I'm about 90% saying yes, just because of the videos.
Yeah.
Some of
You
those
need the
videos
physical
out there,
proof.
oh my!
Oh,
how these
yeah.
people don't poop
Yeah.
their pants is beyond me.
Yeah,
Because
seriously,
I'd be
though.
like, no, But
Yeah.
that is like 10%. I
Yeah.
got that little bit of,
Of course.
and then there's the theories of, that Bigfoots are aliens.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of,
Interdimensional.
but
There's
I
a
kind of
theory
want
for
to get
everything.
back. Yeah, there's a theory for everything. So we're gonna get back to the ghosty
Sorry.
stuff. No, you're fine.
Like an
If we
ADD.
could go for like 3 more hours if we start talking about like Bigfoot, because
Ugh.
as mentioned, I'm a cryptid girl, so I don't know why I said it like that, but you're welcome, everyone. But yeah, I mean, but I do want to know, and I want to know this for our listeners and whatnot, but what sort of advice and what sort of kind of inside, I don't know, I guess knowledge that you can kind of share with this next generation of ghost investigators?
Stop provoking. For God's sake, stop
Yeah.
provoking.
Yeah.
How would, this is what I have to say. How would you feel if somebody came into your house and said, "Give me your name," or whatever? You know what it's there's no respect anymore. And you know what? If you go in acting like a jerk, they're going to be a jerk back to you. So don't go crying if somebody's throwing stuff at you because you're a jerk,
Yeah.
But
Yes, we're a big, well, at least I am a big proponent is they're people. Just treat them like people. Don't,
exactly.
you
Yes,
don't
I
have to be a
agree.
jerk. You don't have to pretend like your flight is delayed and that's the ticket taker. Like, come on, let's be
Yeah.
decent.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
mean,
But I found over the years that the more investigating you do, the more evidence you get, which Mark and Debbie Constantino, God rest them, uh, they're the ones that kind of brought that up in the beginning, like, hey, you keep doing it, you get more and more and more, and we found that to be true. And
do you
I
think you
also,
just become more open to it and it's
yeah,
not just
I think
evidence, but it's just more energy coming towards you?
I think that's part of it. But I think a lot of it too is like a comfort level, you know, like we went to many places over and over again, but there was one place that we went to, oh my God, probably 25, 30 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an old Grange. And on the upper floor, they always had a perpetual yard sale. So it was like, rummage sale, ghost hunting. Yes, please. So,
Seriously, that
so
sounds
I would
like
be like, can we go ghost hunt the Grange? But
Yes,
I need some new
please.
picture frames.
exactly. And wedding dresses. And
Yes, please.
wedding dresses. They were beautiful. But they're all sample sizes. But
Of course.
so we would go to this Grange, and sometimes we went weekly, and we always started the same way. Hi, I'm Stacey, and we would introduce ourselves, and then everybody around the room would say their name. And one of the last times we were there, everybody was saying their name, and then at the very end, you hear this guy go, Peter. I don't have a Peter.
That makes me so happy.
I love Peter. He's my
And
favorite.
Peter,
It's so
where you
funny
been?
because if you give them humor, they'll give it back. Like I
Yeah.
had another place, a cemetery that we used to go to all the time, and I went with a member, and she was talking about how she worked at the airport at the parking booth, and she said, and she was a very short lady, very rotund, and she had a very, very soft and sweet voice, and she said, I was in that parking lot, and this car kept coming and going and coming, and after 6 times, I thought maybe I should figure out what was going on. So I said, what was it? She said, well, I looked inside the car and he wasn't wearing pants.
What?
So this EVP comes out and goes, no.
Oh, I love that so much.
And then we tried playing music at this same cemetery, and we tried every form of music that we could find. We went from Yankee Doodle Dandy, through the ages up until we did rap. And we did one rap song, and they used the N-word quite a bit. And one of the EVPs was, oh my gosh, they know that word.
Oh, I don't know how. What?
Wow.
Probably it was a word that they called slaves because it was a
Right.
cemetery that had stopped being used in 1800.
Right.
So I just assumed that they were like, oh my gosh, they use that word still,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is wild.
But-
So I love this idea that the familiarity, when you first said it, like going to a place over and over again, I thought, oh yeah, like you get to know a place, you get to notice what's like unusual or what would be new, or you start looking at smaller details, but also the familiarity of whatever's there with
Yeah.
you guys.
Yeah. I
That's so
had
cool.
one friend in New Jersey. She got the most incredible EVPs at a old Mason Hall, and it was women. And it wasn't just EVPs. She actually heard with her ears. They sang. She's sitting in a room with 6 people, and you hear la la la. And then she says, what are you singing? And she says, oh no, she says, what are you doing? She says, singing. I like singing.
Oh.
Clear as day, like the person was in the room,
That is wild.
Yep.
I got
And
chills a little bit.
To me, over the years, the sweet stories are the ones that really kind of stick with me, that and the funny ones. I can't even tell you how many funny things that have happened. I pranked John Zappas pretty good.
Well, you got to tell us that story.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, I pranked that man good. I pranked him good. Yep. And meeting Jason and Grant for the first time, that was hilarious. Oh my gosh. And just that Dave Schrader had done that event at Rolling Hills, and that was the first time I met Jay and Grant. And this story's the best. We had Grant didn't bring a coat, so Jane, Grant, and I went to a Kmart, and Grant's going to buy a coat. So as we're going into the store, Jay's wife pulls up behind and screams out the parking lot, "Hey, aren't you guys on TV?" Like that. So we look and we're ha ha ha, and she took off. And this woman was coming out as this was said, and she stopped. And she turned and she said, "Excuse me." So I was like, okay, she's going to realize that's Jay and Grant, because Ghost Hunters was like on fire. This was, right in the beginning. So I kind of backed off, and she says, "Did that woman say that you were on TV?" Jay and Grant said, "Yep." "I don't know you guys." So they're like, she's like, they were like, do you like ghost shows?" "Oh yeah, I love ghost shows." "Oh, okay." She said, they said, "What's your favorite show?" "Most Haunted." Right? So they're making the gag and the Most Haunted show. And they said, "Any other show that you watch?" She said, "Oh my God, that's where I know you from." And she turned to me and she goes, "You were on a haunting today." So, and I was on earlier that day. So Jane and Grant are standing right there, and they were like, "Any other shows that you watch?" "No," she goes, "I hate those plumbers." She says, "I can't stand those plumbers on that ghost show." So I kind of went like this, and Jane Grant said, "You don't like the plumbers?" And then she realized who it was, and she broke out into tears.
Oh
no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Yeah, that was, oh my gosh. It was just one of those things of, how would I get recognized over them? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's all about timing.
It is. And then Jane Grant took me on a little tour chasing deer. It was interesting. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Funny.
Listen, we are at the top of our hour, end of the hour. How does it go? I don't know.
Whatever.
Do you have anything that you want to promote? I know that you haven't done this in a while, but where can they find the EVP that we were talking about earlier?
It's on YouTube, and it is called Horrific EVP.
All right.
Okay. And so it'll say something about Central New York ghost hunters. Like I said, the original was pulled because it violated the content, but somebody had spammed it and put it around. So it is out there.
And it's about 10 minutes long.
It's
correct?
about 10 minutes long, and it starts out with it sounding like somebody playing with a microphone. And it sounds rah, 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 rah. And for some reason, the sensitivity of the mic got turned up at that point.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. It just was normal. Then all of a sudden, the sensitivity mic went crazy up. So, and then we got this crazy EVP.
Yeah. And again, if anybody wants to take a crack at it,
yes, I'll send you the 20 minutes of it. And it's in a rock song, believe it or not, in Germany. Yep.
Oh well, okay, wait. Then you said Germany, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, some German, and I actually heard it not too long ago. I had Spotify on. I was like, that's my EVP. But,
of all places.
Yeah, like I said, this thing's almost 20 years old, and at this point, that was the one thing I really wished I had gotten answers on. You know.
Well, let's get those answers, everybody.
Yeah, seriously, reach out to us.
For
reach
somebody
out to me.
just to be able to hear exactly what went on, because everybody hears something different.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So this has been delightful. Thank
This
you
is-
so
yeah,
much
this is a
for.
real treat.
It was fun. It was
I'm
fun.
glad. That's
Yeah.
our goal. We just want to have a nice time with our spooky friends. Not that you're
Yeah.
spooky, but you have good stories. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
You know, the
Everybody-
one thing I've been kind of playing with in the last 5 years or so is I'm trying to figure out how EVPs work with sound waves.
Oh,
All right.
So that's what I've been doing for like the past 5 years, and
Nice.
trying to figure that out. Just trying to figure out how sound works was ridiculous, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's stupid. It's hard science and weird.
Yeah. So that's what I've been kind of working on. I've been working on that, and of course everybody's like, well, you should write a book, and I've got the worst hyperactivity disorder ever. So you know.
Oh, sister, yes, I
Yeah.
understand, but
You
you
have a
absolutely
recorder.
do need to write a book.
Yeah.
Get on that.
Oh, and then I thought for a little while, you know what? Being a social scientist, we could be able to come up with a system, like almost like a checklist when you walk into a house. You know, have you done this? Is it this? And it kind of gives you a score. And I was working
Yeah.
with that too, but you
I
know,
feel like that would be a really cool thing, and I'd love to see that going on.
Yeah,
I would
for
like
sure.
it, but how do you measure somebody's fear? My fear is different than your fear.
That's true.
So how do you
Yeah.
quantify that?
That's a great
That's
question.
true. You could have questions in there relating to like, hey, take this objectively, or some sort of scale that you could use. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah,
spitballing here. Let's get together and work on this. I feel like
you
this
know,
is a good
I
plan.
kind of looked at it like, you know, if you think your house is haunted, you get this little sheet and you tallied up 65 and over, you got a ghost.
Oh, it's like
I
a
love this
BuzzFeed
so much.
quiz.
Oh my gosh.
Cosmopolitan quiz.
Oh, this is so great. All right.
How
We're gonna
sexy
be-
is your ghost? Yeah.
Listen, this needs to
We
be an
have-
app, is what it needs to be.
We have so
Oh,
many of these things. We are gonna get together. We are gonna come up with a game
Yeah,
plan.
let me know. You
And
know,
this
Yes.
is gonna
I'm a retired person from Florida, and you know, I yell at people to get off my lawn. So
Fair.
listen. I've been looking at Florida for a future relocation effort. So we'll talk about Florida, all kinds of stuff.
don't do it.
Really?
Ladies, I gotta wrap this up. Stacey, thank you so much. It has been so fun. Stick around. We'll chat for a second. Everybody else,
Don't shout.
you're not the boss of me. You'll check out our socials. We're Monsters Lounge Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Email us and junk. Okay, bye.